Hey, what's going on, good people? It's Gardner Douglas, your Oyster Ninja. I'm here with a legend. I'm sure you guys know him. I'm about to get introduced to him, but Mr. Adam Calhoun of Oyster Boy. How are you, man?
Good, thanks, Garner. How you going today?
I'm good. Not as good as you, man. You're in the raw bars. Sometimes I miss the raw bars, but not that much. Not that much.
Yeah. I'm just setting up, getting ready for tonight.
As we were talking a little bit before, I've interviewed a bunch of people on the podcast, and your name always keeps coming up, keeps popping up. So my my interest was intrigued. It was tickled a little bit.
Sure.
Um, Mr. Chris, we got Patrick, we got Jason. Everybody, was bringing up your name, and just tell me a little bit, man. Like this Oyster Boy, like how did it become a thing?
Sure. I was working for a fellow named Rodney Clark at the Ice House, which was the precursor to Rodney's Oyster House when I was 21. And I would go and set up the catering for Rodney, and he was Rodney the Oyster Man. And I would be setting up, and people would say, "Are you Rodney the Oyster Man?" And I would say, "No, I'm Adam the Oyster Boy." Then we opened up the restaurant, Rodney's Oyster House at Jarvis and Adelaide, the first one, and I was the front house manager. I stayed there for about a year, and I'd previously worked there a bit over a year doing the wholesale catering and getting the restaurant ready for the folks to come in. And then I went to work for the microbrewery industry in Ontario here in Toronto for 9 years. And during that time, to get extra taps and to sell more beer to my restaurant clients, because I was licensee sales, I would offer to do an oyster night to get another tap to sell more beers because I was on commission. And that kind of took off. People would ask me if I could shuck at their house, so I started doing that, and I was initially using Rodney's facilities and their equipment and oysters and stuff. And then they started charging me for labor, but they were charging me for my own labor. So that's if they hadn't have done that, I'd still be in the beer business.
Right.
It just made me mad, and I was like, "What? Why? Like I was promoting their company, and they're charging me for on-site labor. I'm the on-site labor. I was donating my labor to get the beer taps, to get more beer sales, and they're charging me for it." So it was quite a bit of a ridiculous scenario, and then that's how Oyster Boy was really born. It was pretty easy to come up with the name because I'd had that moniker from before,
Mm-hmm.
and I always have a youthful appearance, especially when I was youthful. So that's how Oyster Boy was born, and it just really grew. Rodney's was the only game in town up until we came along, just over 30 years ago, and so we instantly were very successful, knock on wood, and of course, kind of culinary awakening of the city of Toronto at the same time. So I just kind of rode that wave, and oysters weren't very popular, and that's why I really, went into the industry because I thought, oh, this is great. It's not that popular, and I can make a niche for myself. But if 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 it was as popular as they are now, I would not be in the industry. I'd be in, I don't know, chicken feed or something like that. Chicken feed
Got you.
boy, whatever. It just was so obscure that it really tickled my fancy, and now they've become so popular and quite mainstream, but that's good too. I guess it's good for the industry. It's good for the oyster growers, and but it's changed a lot since I've been involved. But that's how Oyster Boy came about.
So, I want to get back to, I was reading something, an article somebody wrote about you, and they were saying that you were, like the top beer salesman. Was that because of the oysters pop up? You was, adding on as a plus, or was it just your great salesmanship?
Second one, I would do anything to sell beer. I was an incredibly good rep. I don't mind saying it because I blew away everyone else. Yeah, I mean, I think there was eight. It was a small microbrewing industry when the first microbrewing started happening in Canada, And I think there was 8 reps the second year I was there, and my sales were greater than all the other ones combined. Only because whatever I do, I really just dedicate 100% of my time and effort to it. That would be the reason why there's no ring on my finger and I'm single. But I enjoy my work and I enjoy doing an honest day work and giving it all I have. And I did that, whatever I do, whether it's oysters or beer sales or restaurant managing or whatever I do. I give it 120%, 100,000,000%. And I just lived beer and constantly was on the road delivering beer. We had the whole of Ontario was all there. It was brand new industry, like the microbrewing industry. No one knew small breweries. It was all the big three in Canada. It was all homogeneous, very plain beer. And we had something tasty and different. And it was pretty easy. It was like kind of shooting fish in a barrel, really. It was quite it wasn't very challenging at all. It was pretty easy. So it's like anything, you just do it and you apply yourself and have confidence in what you do, and it should happen.
What was your upbringing when when you were growing up in seafood? Because Toronto isn't connected like to water, right?
No, no, just Lake Ontario.
Right. So how did you
Uh,
get connected with seafood and oysters and all that kind of stuff?
Honestly, it was just being in the restaurant industry. I had been since I was 13 years old. I was started out as a potato peeler and dishwasher and pot washer, and then by the time I was 15, I was grill cook, uh, and just worked my way up while I was going to school and stuff. And when I came to Toronto, because I was growing up just north of Toronto, I met a fella that was working for Rodney, the Ice House. This is back in 1985. And it was oysters, and again, it was something different and something obscure. And I thought that's pretty cool. I mean, there's no there back then there was no really oyster. There wasn't an oyster bar. There was Z Grill, I think, up on Mount Pleasant, which no one really knew about because there was no social media back then. But there wasn't really oyster bar per se. Rodney's was kind of the first one, and to be in on the ground floor for that was pretty exciting to do. And it was because it was obscure and no one else was doing it. That's why I thought it was just like the micro beer before, right? It was a brand new thing. Like, people have been shucking oysters since the dawn of civilization. It's not new. It was just new in Toronto, the presentation and the proper handling of the product and the appreciation of oysters. It just was starting to really develop in Toronto at that time. And it was also, I was 21 and oysters are an aphrodisiac. And I was like, okay, let's go. Let's gonna have some fun with this. So I had lots of fun. That's believe me, it's still working.
Right. Do you have any funny stories of like when you first started shucking? I know you said you were a potato peeler. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. So a potato peeler, that's big in Canada, right? Because Canadians love potatoes, apparently.
Oh yeah, like something says, ketchup loves potatoes.
Right. So yeah, do you have any funny stories with your first shucking memories?
Yeah, absolutely. There was lots of stuff that happened at the Ice House with Rodney and John and Doug. I was the junior guy in, and those guys were crazy, crazy dudes. I think they were 5 or 6, 7 years older than me. And I cleaned up after a lot of their messes, but they taught me how to party, that's for sure. Rodney would come in, I'd go set up the party. Rodney would come in and do his thing and leave with 2 women on his arms, and I'd be cleaning up, and I almost dropped that boat into the Lake Ontario a couple times. And Dougie and Johnny used to get together, and when they did a party, they were drinking, like we were drinking on the
Right.
job all the time. It
Yeah.
was it was the 80s. You're not just drinking, believe me.
Rock stars.
And things got out of hand quite often, and they'd send the innocent young kid, the oyster boy, to go clean up their mess the next day or whatever. Some of the stuff I can't really say. I don't want to get anyone in trouble, even this
Mm-hmm.
day. But I think the main funny story, Garner, is that so many times back then you'd be shucking oysters at an event, and most people would be going ew and gross, and that is, ew, I hate that. It's like, looks like snot, and you're just going, what am I doing this for? But now it's, you go and do a catering party and you're shucking like a maniac because people are, their oysters are so popular.
Yeah.
uh Funny, and I off the top of my head, that's what I mean, there was lots of, it was funny for them, I guess, but not so funny for me.
Right, because you got to clean off the mess.
Yeah, so
Um,
yeah, so whilst I was at the brewery, again, it was, I was, offering to do the oysters to get another tap, right? Because a lot of restaurants and bars would have 4 or 5 or 6, 7 draft taps. So maybe I'd have one, and to get another one, I would say, hey, let's do an oyster night once a month, and we'll, do a pint of the beer, Upper Canada Lager, or Rebellion, or Dark Ale, whatever it was, with 6 oysters for a special price, and drum up business. So I was like, I'll get you, you buy the oysters, I'll come in, shuck the oysters, talk to people about the oysters and the beer, and we'll have fun. And it was a lot of fun. I did that at quite a few different places over the years, and it really took off. It was, that's how Oyster Boy took off. So what the brewery was happening is the brewery got sold because everything was really popular, and as they were getting sold, I got a buyout, and I opened my first restaurant, was just down the street, 10 doors that way, called Swan Restaurant, and we put a little oyster bar in there too. And then Oyster Boy Catering really took off. Before I opened this place, I had 350,000 in sales just catering offsite and wholesale. We
that's
opened this
crazy.
place 25 years ago this June.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy to think about, the just the sales in those times. That's
Yeah, that was,
amazing.
yeah, it's quite big.
As far as like the catering, how do you think the catering has changed from when you started to like now?
Cool. Well, a lot more caterers, that's for sure. And there's a lot more wholesalers. I mean, 14 years ago, we were probably the third largest distributor in Canada. Now we're probably seventh or sixth or something, because out of the fisheries, all the people that sell fish are selling oysters. And catering, it's more of a mainstream thing, which is good. So we're busier than we were 15 years ago. Obviously, there's more people to do it. More people know how to shuck oysters, and so that's good. A lot of caterers are doing their own. We used to subcontract for a lot of the caterers, and just go in and they would hire us, and we'd say, "Oh, we're working for this caterer." But a lot of them can do it now because more and more people know how to shuck oysters, which is good for the industry. I've taught thousands and thousands and thousands of people to shuck oysters over the years, lots of industry people. So it's much more common, it's much more popular. And so, it's very good. Um, you're not getting the weird looks anymore at all. So that's nice. And way more acceptance and uh, eagerness to eat the oysters, much more positivity around the oysters, and doing events that, like we do suffered construction unions, right? And it's like all these construction workers, it's like, that's awesome. You would never think that a while ago, like 20 years ago. So it's much more mainstream, which is good. Oysters, that's why I said that in 1999, oysters are the chicken wing of the new millennium, right? So and it's true, they are. It's unbelievable. I mean, the one thing that I would say is the negativity part of it is some restaurants use oysters as a loss leader, like a bucket shuck, or discount the oysters. And I always feel that that doesn't do justice to the animal, the product, nor the people that fish it, because it's not like chickens where they just go in a big barn and there's automatic feeders, and they get their chemicals, or what is it called? Viruses, or what is it called? Injections.
The steroids.
Yeah, steroids, or what do you get when you inoculations, all the chemicals to keep them healthy. Oysters aren't like that. They're grown in the wild, and the oyster farmers are more wranglers working with what Mother Nature provides, and there's a lot of work for a good, well shaped oyster and a healthy oyster that goes into it. And I feel that the bucket shuck and discounting oysters does not pay homage to the people that have worked so hard on the oysters. And we try to tell people every day is like, it's not just this animal has been handled 50 or 60 times before it's come here, and it's a lot of work has gone into it. So whether you're eating it or learning how to shuck it, you must respect the animal and respect the people that are touched that and made that product come here, and the animal what it is.
No doubt, man. That's oyster appreciation. And
Truly.
I totally agree with you. Um for a new when's the last time you hired an oyster shucker for your restaurant?
Hired?
Yeah, when's the last time you hired an oyster shucker?
Well, I don't really hire shuckers. I hire servers
Hmm.
and teach them how to shuck,
Nice.
because most oyster shuckers are assholes, as I know I am one. I don't hang out with any oyster shuckers.
I'm glad you said it to my face.
Yeah, it's okay. Uh, I don't hang out with anyone that shucks oysters, except whatever my staff that I've taught. Um, so I hire servers to shuck. I did hire a guy recently, and we'll see if he works out. But he's shucking, but he's like a mercenary. He comes in when we're busy. He's like catering. So the shuckers we hire for catering. So if there's someone that's interested in catering, like once every couple of years, I'll put an ad out saying, "Hey, if you're interested in shucking part time, you want to cater. We get people at home shuck, they come in for some, superior training techniques and shucking techniques to get them fast and to make sure that they're shucking the perfect oyster. Because again, we want to pay homage to the oyster and make sure that all the people that are growing it, it's respecting the animal, making sure it looks good. So we just, kind of uplift them to a professional shucker, and then we use that for catering because, right now catering's not busy, but in another month and a half it will be. So we get a lot of part timers there. So we hire shuckers for that. But for the restaurant, no, shuckers don't work in the restaurant. You have to be a server because it's such a small place, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be, if you're not shucking, you've got to be
Doing
polishing
something.
glasses, you got to be serving guests, you got to be making drinks, you got to be doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So,
Yeah, I get it. And I really, I'm glad to hear you hire service and then teach them to shuck. I was asking because I always wanted, especially a person of your caliber, and oyster shucking skills and history. I was wondering like what type of lessons you teach them, to get them to your standard at Oyster Boy.
yeah. Well, it's all about the perfect oyster. Every oyster has to look perfect. So, what we do is we start them. I shuck them and I see this is a perfect oyster. And then if I made a mistake, it's like this is not perfect. I can do the French flip, like flip it over and make it look good on the other side. So I show them those techniques to make it look perfect. If you have not perfected it, we do the whole lessons. I do the Shuck You program every weekend, every Sunday for just the public. They come in for like $110. They get 12 oysters. They get me talking for 45 minutes about oysters and how they're grown and then we go in shucking them, and they all shuck them. So I present that to the employees that come in, and then they go to the back and shuck oysters, maybe 100 oysters, and then I come and watch them and say this way, no, that way, this way. So really hands on. And then they shuck another 100 oysters, and then I'm like, that looks good, that looks good. Then they shuck another 100 and another 100 and another 100, about 500 or 600. Then I start going, okay, now you're shucking a nice looking oyster, be faster. So I want 10% faster. So if they shuck, say 100 oysters and it took them 25 minutes, I'll be like, this time it should be 22 minutes, and then the next one will be 20 minutes, and the next box will be 18 minutes, till they get to around 11 minutes for a box of 100. Then they're ready for the bar. So they come out to the bar and be a secondary shucker on a Friday or Saturday night, and bartending as well. And those oysters have to look perfect, or they can shuck on a slow night. Like some nights, Monday, say I could have no shuckers here at all, no, like just people learning, but all I live right upstairs, so I can come down and shuck the rush. But all the people that are learning can shuck the shoulders, and I'll come down and watch, make sure that the oysters are perfect, 5 to 7 until it gets busy, and then I'll shuck for an hour and a half when it's busy. Then they can finish them off, and I'll stick around and watch them and give them tips and say this is how they have to be perfect, right? They have to be perfect. If they're not perfect, let's put them aside. We can use them for cooking because we have the baked oysters, so that's no problem. So we have a lot of leeway, so we can take that time to really train people well and make sure the oysters are perfectly presented. And the ones that aren't perfectly presented, we can use for cooked oysters because they have sauce on them and everything. So it's all good.
How have you guys transitioned or bounced back, or how did you guys deal with COVID and coming out of it?
Yeah, well, that was tough for everyone, Garner. That was really tough for everyone, and we're lucky that I was lucky that I have really good staff. So I laid off 33 people, April 2020, which is the hardest day of my employment life. It was a pretty sad day, and gave them all severance. And we were the Oyster Boy was pretty broke at that point, and Oyster Boy was just me.
Right.
There's no employees, right? It was just me. I was the only employee, not getting paid. And then I started bringing some of the ones I wanted back that wanted to come back, and formulated the plan for takeaway. So on May 10th, I think we started taking away oysters and beer and stuff. And then May 15th, we started with the kitchen. And, everyone was trapped in Toronto. So no one was going anywhere. And we had huge, massive amount of condos just south of us. Like, I think there's 50,000 people like within a two
Wow.
mile radius of us. So that really worked in our favor. So, fish and chips, couldn't do baked oysters. We did bake at home oysters. Oysters, obviously, to shuck and then shuck on your own, which went really, really well. Um, and, fish tacos, all the stuff that is easy to take away. So we did
Mhm.
a lot of that, lobster boils. So we transitioned really well because of the staff. So I had 6 staff working here, and they did such a great job. I gave them each 5% of the company during the pandemic. So we came out of the pandemic with me owning 70%, I guess. I don't know, 5 plus 30. Yeah. But since then, we had a deal. Like I buy them out. The ones that didn't want to stay, and so I bought 2 out, and we're buying another one out, and so there's 4 of us left now. So yeah, so
Yeah, that's
that's
awesome.
how that really worked out well. I just really appreciated the staff and what they were doing. I gave them free reign. We didn't have any food apps or delivery apps. And I went away for 2 weeks. I was just like, I can't deal with this. I closed this place down. You guys get sales up, do whatever you have to do the apps. I don't care. Because I was against all the apps. And
Hmm.
I came back and everything was dinging and whistling and
Right.
beeping. And all these apps were going and it was busy. And I was like, that's great. So that's when I gave them the 5%. And now that's carried over to normal business. Right now up in Canada, we're in a recession, right? Interest rates are high. I thought like 50,000 people live in the neighborhood, but they're all with new tenants or owners. So their mortgage payments went up by $1,000 a month. So we're in a recession now, but we still have the takeaway. So it's really helped our overall sales. So yeah, that's how we did during the recession. It was good. We did a good job.
That's what's up, man. I'm glad to hear that. And that was honestly, I want to ask you, like, what was the main part that made you want to divvy out like the ownership?
Well, just it
I've
was
never
hard.
heard that before.
it was very heartfelt. I mean, they were doing the job. I had given up, right? I was just like,
Gotcha.
I had enough. I was like, man, maybe it's time I checked out of this business, and they kept it going. So that's why. I mean, they really deserved it. It wasn't anything they deserved, and you know, the ones that have walked away and gone and done their things, they get a nice big check for 25 grand, and I get the shares back. And one's going to art school, one's traveled back to Vancouver Island, one's just working in the industry still, but
Hmm.
has the money, is going to Europe or something. So yeah, they're all doing fun things with the money because they deserve it. They're all young, right? So hopefully that instills the uh, reward, hard work ethic in them, and yeah, they're doing good. Oh, oysters coming in. Here's some oysters coming in right there.
Oh wow, what kind are they?
Those are St. Simone's from Shippagan, New Brunswick. Mallet.
Nice.
Yeah.
St. Simone's. I don't believe I've had those before.
That's way up north, New Brunswick. Just right. So the St. Lawrence Market, the St. Lawrence River comes out and it gets all that fresh. There's a lot of fresh water coming in there, a lot of the ocean, but these will be salty because they've been hibernating for a while. So, but they're good. They're good, strong oysters.
All right, so we made it through the pandemic. You did what you had to do to keep going.
Really.
Um, so now, and even over the past 30 years, like how do you keep changing the circle, the ball? You know what I mean? Like because you're staying in business, you're successful. Um, do you? I guess how do you stay ahead of the game?
Oh, it's just you, you become the game,
You
man.
become the game.
Oyster Boy is not a job; it's a lifestyle, right?
Right.
So, there's no separation between my private life and Oyster Boy. It's all the same. It's just what I do. I sleep upstairs. I don't I don't have much of a personal life. I hang out with all restaurant people and chefs and owners. Like I go on to two parties this weekend, both the birthday parties for restaurant owners in Toronto. And I'm just invited. I'm just a friend, and I'll bring some oysters. They all know I'll bring oysters. So just hang out with industry people. It's my life. It's the life I chose. I chose a life of service, and
Mhm.
I picked a great vehicle to to take with me and to represent, which is the oyster.
What do you see for the future for Oyster Boy? Or where would you like it to go?
Well, the fella there behind who's bringing in the oysters, that's Mark Straczynski. He owns more than 5%. Because we talked about this. Mark and I have been talking about ownership for 7 years.
Hmm.
He's the heir apparent to take over my job. Right now, he does wholesale catering, and he's my assistant general manager. So he's going to take over for me whenever I die or I'm too frail to work. Which I'm pushing 60, but I feel pretty good. I walk like 5 miles a day and keep fit. I quit smoking the last year and quit drinking. So, to change the lifestyle. So I have a bit more longevity so I could keep Oyster Boy going for a bit longer. I feel pretty good. I'm up and down those stairs 10 times, 100 times a day. So I feel good. I feel good physically and mentally and emotionally. And Mark's, he's the guy taking over. Here he comes now. Here's the general manager of the future and
Nice.
owner. So every time I buy someone out, I get some of the shares and Mark gets some of the shares too, right? So he
Okay.
doesn't have to buy any shares because he's earned it. He works so hard, and he comes in. He's here 7 days. He's thinking about the place 7 days a week. Comes in 6 days a week, and he's very dedicated to Oyster Boy, and he loves oysters, and he's really good at it as well.
What
Really,
can potential oyster lovers expect when they come to Oyster Boy?
a lot of knowledge, a lot of respect for the product. Some good people. We have really good good service. Uh, it's kind of a home style place. People feel really at home here. It's been here for 25 years. It's been a restaurant. This facility has been a restaurant for over 70 years. So it's kind of got that. ghostly feeling of hospitality, like it's built into the bricks and mortar. And expect, just a good product, good oysters, good seafood. We've got a great chef, Kong. He's one of the owners. And he's putting out some great food. We're changing the menu up next week, so nothing drastic or anything, but just good fish. We've been around for a long time, Garner, so we have good relationships with not just the oyster growers around the country and the world, I guess, but uh, fit people that sell fin fish in Toronto, and sometimes we buy direct from the coasts. We have, we're known, so we do get good fish, and people know I know what is good. So no one is shipping us shit stuff because it's my life. I've been doing this for my whole life. I know finfish, I know shellfish, I know what the dates are, the codes. I know everything about anything to do with oysters and finfish coming to a restaurant in Toronto. And anything I don't know, I'm going to learn because you never stop learning. So they can expect high quality for very reasonable price and a very good service aspect of the facility as well. And again, like there's loads of regulars here. You're going to feel at home if you're coming from anywhere.
Nice, man. So where are you located? You want to drop that address, that
Surely,
heading, and
872 Queen Street West, where our Instagram is Oyster Boy Toronto. Our website is oysterboy.ca. My Instagram is Adam underscore of underscore oyster underscore boy. So we're Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and we're very Googleable. You just Google up Oyster Boy, and we're right there. Boom! It's right in your face.
all
Because
over the place?
so we were here before Google, before the World Wide Web. I've run this business, so it's when people call me and send me emails. Hey, would you like to get more exposure? And I tell them, listen, I expose myself all the time. It's what I do every day. I'm the oyster boy.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, man. I appreciate you sitting down having a conversation with the Oyster Ninja podcast, and I hope some listeners come and check you out on a trip to Canada, or if they're already up there and they're close
Certainly.
by.
Please tell them to say hi and mention your name, and I'll make sure I charge them double.
There you go. There you go. That's how we do it. That's how we do it.
That did it.
All right, man. That's a wrap.